What if everything you see online is controlled by AI, including your opinions? Welcome to FutureShock. This is the Explainer series where we investigate the hidden forces that are quietly but fundamentally shaping our tomorrow. Today, we're diving into a really gripping investigation into the unseen algorithmic forces dictating our digital reality. You know, we often think of social media as just this simple window to the world, right? Like a neutral reflection of what's out there. But the sources we're unpacking today reveal a much more complex and, frankly, a much more suspenseful story about that little piece of technology you carry around in your pocket.
I asked you that question right at the top, but seriously, just let that sink in for a second. Every single time you open an app, you might feel like you're totally in control, freely choosing what to read, what to watch, and ultimately what to believe. But behind that glass screen, incredibly complex mathematical models are making millions of micro decisions about what you should see next. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and explore exactly how artificial intelligence creates these isolated digital worlds and how that's fundamentally altering human society.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the algorithmic feed and how AI actually shapes your reality.
Remember the good old days like a decade ago when social media feeds were mostly chronological? You just saw what your friends posted in the exact order they posted it. Well, as these platforms exploded in size, that became completely impossible. So, artificial intelligence was brought in to curate your experience, and it does this in 3 basic steps. First, the AI tracks every single interaction. And look, it's not just what you hit like on. It's how long your thumb hovers over a post, what you click, your total watch time, the whole shebang. Second, based on that massive pile of data, the AI starts prioritizing familiar, highly emotional content for you. And third, the ultimate goal, maximize your engagement. The sources highlight something absolutely crucial here. These algorithms, they are not designed to optimize for truth or nuance or your mental well-being. They're commercial tools built to hijack your attention, because the longer you stay scrolling, the more ads you see, and the more money the platform makes. It's a relentless engagement loop, and your attention is literally the currency.
Which brings us to section 2, inside the echo chamber, or what we can call the illusion of consensus.
So, what happens when you perfectly optimize a feed to show someone exactly what they want to see? Well, the user becomes slowly, completely and visibly isolated. It creates this wild illusion that everyone agrees with you, which is the foundation of the modern echo chamber. But we really need to distinguish between 2 things here. An information bubble is passive. Think of it like walking into a massive bookstore and voluntarily choosing to only browse the science fiction aisle. You're limiting yourself, sure, but the rest of the store is still right there if you ever want to turn around. An echo chamber, though, that's an active algorithmic environment. It's like the bookstore's AI watching you browse science fiction and then literally moving the walls to hide the history and politics sections entirely so you can't even find them. It just repeatedly feeds you the exact same viewpoints, reinforcing what you already believe, while actively blocking out any dissenting perspectives.
So, you might be wondering what kind of content actually survives and thrives in that kind of echo chamber. When we put sensational content up against truthful content, the algorithm picks a clear winner every time. Sensational content, stuff that is emotionally charged, extreme, or super controversial, acts like a trigger for our psychological biases. It sparks anger, fear, or intense joy. Truthful content, on the other hand, well, it's usually nuanced, it's moderate, and frankly, it's a bit more boring to the human brain. And because the AI has no idea how to distinguish between a deeply researched fact and a wild made-up conspiracy theory, it just blindly amplifies the sensational stuff simply because it gets a bigger reaction and keeps your eyes glued to the screen.
To put a hard number on that, 70%. According to a landmark study by MIT researchers published in the journal Science, false political stories spread 70% faster than true ones online. 70%. And look, it's not because humans are intentionally trying to spread lies. It's because false stories are systematically engineered to be shocking and emotionally provocative, which, as we now know, is exactly what the algorithm is desperately hungry for. It spreads like wildfire.
Moving on to section 3, the polarization engine. Let's look at how this is dividing society.
What happens when this algorithmic amplification breaks out of our personal screens and bleeds into the real world? The sources make it crystal clear. The digital realm does not exist in a vacuum. Let's just look at the timeline objectively. In 2016, we saw AI ad targeting used to massively amplify misinformation, creating these hyper-partisan bubbles during the US elections. Fast forward to 2017, and engagement metrics on video platforms were observed heavily pushing users toward increasingly radical conspiracy theories, like QAnon, purely because that extreme content maximized watch time. Then hit 2020, and internal reports showed algorithms were driving roughly 50% of all engagement with COVID-19 misinformation. The tech seamlessly scaled from influencing political elections to complicating a global public health crisis. It's just a cold, impartial reflection of how a system built entirely on engagement will always amplify the most divisive narratives it can find.
And all of this leads to a very specific, very heavy psychological toll. There's a quote from the literature I want to share. Affective polarization refers to the level of animosity, distrust, and hostility felt toward those on the other side. We aren't just talking about politely disagreeing on tax policy or healthcare anymore. Affective polarization means that ideological disagreement has mutated into a visceral, hostile us versus them mentality. The machine doesn't just change what you think about an issue. It literally changes how you feel about your own neighbors.
1 week. If you think it takes years to brainwash a society, think again. There was this chilling field experiment by researchers at Northeastern University. They took a group of users and simply re-ranked their social media feeds. That's it. They didn't ban or censor anything, they just altered the algorithmic flow, changing the order of what appeared. In just a single week, they measured significant, concrete alterations in the user's affective polarization. 7 days. That is literally all it takes for the machine to significantly shift your hostility toward an opposing group. No way, right? But the data proves it.
Let's dive into Section 4, Impact on Human Connection, and what researchers are calling the empathy deficit.
As we get more and more entrenched in our own customized little digital realities, there is a profound cost to our human relationships. Researchers are pinpointing an empathy deficit. Let's break down how these isolated realities kind of destroy our common ground. First, they foster severe confirmation bias. We literally only accept information that pats us on the back and says, "We were right all along." This naturally breeds that us versus them tribal mentality we were just talking about. Because when you never, ever see the human side of someone you disagree with, it drives that empathy deficit. You lose the capacity to even understand their struggles. And ultimately, this causes a total breakdown of civil discourse. We stop talking with each other, and we just start yelling at each other from across this massive algorithmic divide.
So, that brings us to Section 5, our digital future. Where do we go from here?
The sources we've been exploring present us with a really stark crossroads. We have to look at the trajectory we're on right now. If we project current trends forward to the year 2035, researchers paint a highly fragmented scenario. We're looking at a world where citizens live in entirely separate digital realities. Imagine two people living in the exact same city, but essentially existing in completely different universes of facts. This leads to the complete decline of a shared objective truth. And think about it. Without a shared baseline of reality, you get a total loss of trust in democratic institutions, in the media, in science itself. A society just cannot function if its people can't even agree on basic facts. Which leaves us staring down a massive, urgent ethical dilemma. Is AI helping us, or is it dividing us? Is the convenience of getting a perfectly personalized recommendation really worth the cost of outsourcing human knowledge to black box systems motivated purely by corporate profit? It's a question every single one of us needs to chew on as we scroll through our feeds tonight.
Now take a breath, because it's not entirely hopeless. The research does outline some real, actionable strategies to fight back. First up, we need to redesign algorithms so they optimize for diversity of thought rather than just pure, unadulterated engagement. Second, societies need to mandate AI transparency. We absolutely have to be able to look inside that black box. Third, platforms need to implement hybrid AI-human moderation, basically letting human nuance oversee machine speed. And finally, we have to boost global digital media literacy. Because honestly, technical fixes are completely useless if we, the users, don't have the critical awareness to realize when we're trapped in a bubble.
And that brings us to our final provocative thought for today. AI ungal ennangale katulpatugrida. Is AI controlling your thoughts? It is absolutely an urgent question for the future of our society. I want you to drop down into the comments right now and tell me your honest opinion. Have you ever caught yourself stuck in an echo chamber? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. If you want to keep exploring the hidden systems that are shaping our world, make sure you hit that subscribe button to FutureShock for more explainers on AI, technology, and the future of society. Stay curious, stay aware, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.